choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
Welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. This is episode 114, and we are going to be talking about possibilities of crypto and social media in the Metaverse. But let's introduce our panel for today. As always, we've got Distant, aka Dave, joining us.
Hey, that's me.
We've got Joe Dragon, architect of Dragon Chain. We've got Lisa Mighty Davis, Litecoin Lisa. I usually introduce you by three other names also, so there they are.
Yes, I love all the names.
And we have Greg from Rivet. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Just peachy.
Just peachy.
All right, so a little business to take care of before we jump into the questions. Last week, each host is going to receive 93 lot from last week. Each topic contributor is going to receive 58 lot. Last week's theme was cryptocurrency wallets, which was nominated by Derox for 58 lot. As a reminder, these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. And the results of August themes has been announced, and we are excited for them. I'm going to pull up the link here really quick for it.
One moment. I forgot that I'm pulling double duty for a second. Let's get to that right now. It is right here.
You got it, or should I get
And that's not it.
Cool.
While you're waiting, please like and share this video to get it out so we have more people joining us in the live chat, and post your comments in the live chat.
So here are the the pending, I guess, the themes for August that we're discussing.
It's going to be the
right
top
now,
four. So just look at the bigger numbers.
These are the bigger numbers. We've got 3 votes in for XRP versus SEC.
The percentages, though, right? So at the end.
Okay, so we've got top 3 legacy systems to decentralize using blockchain, and we have employment and jobs. Is that coming in? Is that getting voted on? Oh yeah, that's making it. And then blockchain as a solution for economic immigration. Anything that people are super excited for? What are they most excited for?
I like the immigration one, actually. I didn't even recognize that. I think I voted on something else, but it happens.
I like the legacy systems one because I'm a nerd. But yeah, I think that's really neat. It's important to not have to reinvent the wheel every time you deploy something. You could just bring in what exists.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much out there that people used to joke about the cliche of it's like Uber but for bread or whatever, right? Like blockchains and decentralized tech in general actually have a ton of use cases based on the idea it's like this but decentralized and automated permissionlessly, right? Like that's a very valid way to think about how it applies to sectors we haven't even thought about applying it to yet. I think that's a pretty neat one.
Well, and if some of these new House bills go through that were just proposed yesterday, like the one where you're not a money transmitter if you don't take custody of the coins, then like that's a game changer for those old legacy systems that are centralized, and it changes things for we the people so much.
It's amazing how low our bar is for what we can get excited about now too, because like that's such a sensible thing, but at the same time it's like, wow, they're doing something sensible.
Freedom.
Change is incremental. We got small changes happening. I'm gonna be honest, I'm just happy that college football made it into this. We got XRP versus the SEC. I'm glad somebody wants to be in college football.
Bread and circus.
That's a good idea. Yes, that's actually a good point.
All right. Well, that's enough for that. You'll have to tune in next month to hear us talk about all those fun topics. But let's jump into today's topics.
Cool.
I'm going to bring that up. We are ready.
So today we're talking about possibilities.
The possibilities of crypto and social media in the metaverse with episode 114. And our first question comes from
Our first question, I wanted to point out real quick, if I can interject, John. I am for Am's calling an audible on the topic. I think that you don't need an audible for this because we can talk about anything that's related to blockchain, regardless of topic, technically. And I would say that this is blockchain adjacent at the minimum.
The court system is also kind of a metaverse on its own right, if you really use a broad definition.
So that's all I wanted to say is I don't think it needs to necessarily be an audible.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he brought in the college football reference as well for this with the SEC case. So, let's talk about XRP. After the recent ruling in the XRP case, do you see a potential for the SEC winning an appeal? Dave, what do you think? And then
I would say probably not. Maybe. I'm not a lawyer, but even if they do, we've got at least 2 years where tokens are not securities by default in and of themselves, because it's going to be a while. I don't know about 2 years, but that's what I've been reading from lawyers who know how long this kind of stuff takes. So we got at least a grace period. And also the points when I was reading through, the points that Torres used were like one of the 4 technically prongs of the Howey test. So even if on appeal they're somehow able to argue their points on those, there's still the other prongs of the Howey test to fall back on. And so I don't think that it meets many of them. I don't think it hinges on just like one point that came down in the ruling. That's my opinion. So I think it'll stand. It should.
Great. And as we all know, the Howey test is from America's Got Talent, Hallie Mendel, who says whether or not he thinks that you should keep your case. We all say that. We all know that.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you think?
The reality is that answer is usually behind a box, right? Held by some paid person. So from Howey, anyway, whatever that. I do think everything I've read that the risk is high, so nobody knows if they'll go forward or with an appeal, because they've already lost a lot, and do they really want to lose everything? If they appeal it and lose, it's right now they are saying that they might very well be able to say, oh well, that was just special circumstances with that one case, still doesn't apply to this other one, so they can keep playing this game until our supposed representatives ever act, right? And the craziest thing about all of this, frankly, is that in a free country that we're I have to become somewhat of a legal expert related to this topic to do business when I just want to build shit. I'm a software engineer, and I want to build things. And I think that is the intended outcome of this, that the existing incumbent players, whoever they are, that I might be competing with when I build these things, would rather have me not build them. And what better way to do that than to try to kill any funding you can get, try to kill any customers you can get, try to essentially drain you of all of your money that you can get with legal, and in the end come in and grab either destroy you or grab all of that IP, right? That's the intended outcome, and that's essentially what they're doing. This one case has seemingly put a block in that, and hopefully it'll stand. Like Dave said, I've heard it's 2 years, but I have also heard that there really is a decent possibility that Gary moves on to bigger, better things, and who knows? It's so corrupt.
Keep him away from the Fed.
The other thing to note is the amount of tribalism that still exists. You have some people that still can't keep from coming in and saying, instead of saying, hey, we could use this also, this ruling, this is a good thing for the technology. It's like, no, they all have to come and say, oh, but it really is a security because we hate them because they're not us, whatever us is, right? It's so disgusting. And the people that do that,
dude, those people have to be fucking plants. I mean, come on.
Yeah, well,
those are like,
I will tell you, I think a lot of them are. I guarantee to you that a lot of the people, and when I say plants, not necessarily there's some conspiratorial thing, that it's literally you had tons of people come from Goldman Sachs, and you could, I know tons of them already that are outwardly known to be Goldman Sachs that put out some cryptocurrency project that all of the cryptocurrency people said, oh, let's buy that. And now you're seeing, frankly, because of the XRP army, you're seeing a lot of these ties. It's like a freaking spaghetti chart. How many of these guys are tied to each other? It's like, oh, these guys invested in that guy who invested in this project, who invested in this project. And it's like a big circle, and they're all the same damn people. And they're basically siphoning all the money out because half of those projects went nowhere. They just totally died, took all the money. And if not more than half. And they're the ones that aren't getting any scrutiny at all by the regulators. Why is that? Because they're all buddies from Goldman Sachs and MIT. And if you look at the MIT stuff, there's even a fucking Jeffrey Epstein connection. The guy who Gary Gensler worked for at MIT was on the fucking flights, went down to that island. And does the press talk about that shit? No, this is a fucking chairman of the SEC who has a tie to fucking Epstein. And what's the tie? It was like, oh, he just knew that. No, the funding for the projects they were working on at MIT was from Epstein.
All right, Greg.
So
what do you think about this Mandela effect?
I think there's no chance on earth that the SEC will dare appeal this, honestly. I mean, first off, Judge Torres wrote a brilliant, heavily based in legal precedent, in the precedent of the Howey test, in the precedent of the relevant law, reasoned argument that just basically put to bed the silly, nebulous, it eventually morphs into a not security by virtue of decentralization thing that was not a legal standard, that had no precedent behind it. It was a nonsense test. It was just bullshit. It was a bureaucratically convenient thing to say because they still didn't have the wherewithal to even opine confidently about what crypto was. But when they first came up with it, they just knew that they didn't want to try to sue that many different defendants, right? And that was how they rationalized it. Well, this actually is a smart ruling. It takes what would otherwise be an absurd conclusion. Like if you tried to apply the Howey test to the Howey case, the way that Gary Gensler's side is arguing for, people would be like concerned about whether or not they were allowed to squeeze their oranges into orange juice and sell it at a stand, because they might be engaging in the sale of a securities or investment contract and be held liable by the federal government for doing so. Like it's already hard enough to run a juice stand with local ordinances, and they were going to make it even more insane, right? Like, so they know they have a losing case, because when you really look at it, it's a losing case. They're just not going to win it. But if they lose it at the appellate level, they're shooting themselves in the foot. And I don't think that they want that to happen. And I don't think they care about overturning a persuasive precedent as much as they care about not losing and making it binding across the entire Second Circuit, because that best case scenario binds that circuit. Worst case scenario takes it to an already unfriendly to the administrative state Supreme Court, right? Like Gary Gensler is on the back foot right now. And you can tell in all the weird propaganda they're putting out these days. Like we've got the guy from OC or whatever writing a book now, and he's supposed to be like the vanguard of the anti-crypto army these days. Or like they've got Brad Sherman and the Turtle Club saying weird shit again. Like these people are running out of arguments to throw rocks at crypto and push the price down. And I think the only reason they're doing it is because they're afraid of a bank run caused by people exiting in a bull run. Like if those bank accounts start draining, they're going to have a hard time propping up their bullshit U.S. Treasuries on the nominal values that they have right now. So if the mark to market is just terrible, and too much crypto buying probably equals mass bank runs, right? Like, so yeah, Gensler's going to probably cower away from this one, like the weasel he is. So
Lisa, what do you
that's my
think?
opinion.
Yeah, what do you think, Lisa? What do you think about this?
I think all these guys above me are pretty smart, and I would tend to agree with. We did a great interview on the Very Dow channel with Nick Morgan from ICANN, and Greg joined us, and Reggie Middleton was on there with us and discussed the case. And basically the consensus was that, the risk of the SEC going to appeal this would kind of stop, kind of what Joe was saying, might hinder them from being able to go SWAT other projects individually. If they go to appeal this, then that might bring clarity that yes, yeah, that Judge Torres meant what she said, and you have to leave all tokens in the secondary market alone, which is what the amicus that Very Dow holders filed in the case stated, or what, not stated, but brought the attention to the subject, to the harm that the SEC had brought to token holders in the secondary market in our situation. And I don't think they want to keep swinging their hammer and building up their coffers, because they are able to keep, I believe it's 200 million in their own fund of anything that they take from companies, that they don't have to turn that into the U.S. Treasury. They keep that in their own coffers to keep funding the swatting of and stifling innovation in America. So I don't think they want to risk that.
All right. Well, there's our answers on the SEC. I'm still excited to see what college football turns out this year. Let's move on to the next question. I think we covered that one. And we'll probably also talk about it in current events, and also we'll talk about it next month. So our next question comes from I Am as well. How will you be able to tell the difference between a real human from an AI bot in a social media metaverse? And how big of a role will AI bots posing as humans change the way we interact in the metaverse and in the real world? Joe, you want to kick this one off for us?
Sure. I think you put a checkbox on everything, and if you have a checkbox, then the bots can't click those. So, that's one of the 3 robot rules, right? So, I don't know. I mean, generally, I think it's on history, which is why, like, say, scaled blockchain is so important, because if and we've seen the beginnings of it then. If you can look at behavior over a longer period of time, you can do things that we already know, like, say, some of the more successful bot detection techniques have been, where's the bot clicking? Because if you're running a bot, it's harder to randomize it in a way that a human would. You get a different distribution of clicks. So if you imagine that same pattern or that same idea applied to anything, and so over history, did they log in every morning at 9:30 a.m. and then do a few things that trying to pretend that they're a real human, stuff like that, because a normal human is less predictable, and that's one way. Another is bounties. I frankly think that we really need something that would be a measurable identity network, which would include with privacy, and I've done a lot of stuff on this, but it's so abstract. It's hard to even explain to developers how to build some of this stuff. But
you brought it up. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately too.
That you can with trusted third parties, decentralized or centralized, you can expose that, oh, I'm over 18. I have these various factors. You can also, and the more important part is when I'm doing all these things, when I am saying, hey, my identity, I'm a human, I'm a real human. I've met with, let's say, I've met with 500 people, and we've shared or we've signed each other's cryptographic keys, which have, and some of that data has also included biometrics. I can see, okay, this person has blue eyes, this person has green eyes. And the more information you have, the more it can be measured, but that's still not enough because you can fake a lot of that. The interesting part comes when you apply a bounty to it. So essentially you would say, here's an identity, and it's done all of these various actions, which have essentially mined it some type of identity currency. And you guys can help me figure out what would be the utility for that identity currency. But essentially, the more bounty that fills up over the longer period of time, the more attractive it would be to someone to challenge a real or bot identity. And the beauty is, if you had a network of this and you had the ability to look at all of this this network, you would effectively see botnets as a big bubble, not as big as the rest of the network, but a big bubble attached by a small set of branches, right? So it'd be a clear, there are probably other patterns, but something like that's very, very clean and obvious. I'm going to have a bunch of handlers that are making all of these bots, and all of these bots are worth, let's say, $250,000. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to challenge all of those bots. And, it costs me something to challenge so that, I have something at risk. But essentially, it's an economic thing tied to the identity. I think that's the best way, because then when someone is coming over and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, and here's what you need to know about me if we're, going a date, or if we're going to, I'm going to allow you as a customer or something, you'd be able to look at that info and it would have numbers behind it. It wouldn't just be, oh, I think this is a real person, because you never know, right? Anyway, so there's a bunch of that. And people, I think, tend to deal right now with people faking identities. But, this is really about, somebody just setting up a bot and letting it kind of go. So it might be harder to differentiate, but it's still going to have the same, has the bot ever met in real life with a person? It's like, well, no, right? It's going to be much easier to do that. So anyway.
Greg, what do you think about these bots? And how are we going to be able to
I think that we're actually, probably making a distinction that isn't going to really be easy to make when we say that how are we going to tell between chatbots posing as humans and humans acting naturally, right? I think we're going to mostly see humans using chatbots as writing tools and publishing tools. And right now, we may be able to tell if we look really closely at a cherry-picked set of examples, so we can write a research paper about how we're going to build an AI to fight AI trickeries, right? But already there are editions of GPT, large language model based bots, coming out that do not have the same limitations that ChatGPT has. You guys need to look at Worm GPT, for example. This just got sort of highlighted by some security researchers, but if you want to see the real thing in action, you would just need to go to, I think, hackforums.net and find the creator and pay him some crypto, and you can have access to a thing that literally has no limits on it, that can realistically emulate any voice it wants to. And it's probably not going to be used so much to create realistic automation to pretend to be people. I think it's probably just going to be more a tool for people so that they sound smarter and say more clever things. And I don't know if it's even really desirable to try to distinguish, because it's not so much going to be AI versus people. It's going to be AI plus people. And I'd hate to see a world exist where we have something like self-sovereign identity that makes a distinction, where you have like a negative attestation that says, oh, this account's a bot, and therefore you get treated as a fraud, or you get silenced, or you get nerfed or deboosted or labeled, right? And then it ends up being that it was just somebody who was using the AI cleverly, or just a really well-spoken, clever individual, right? Saying something that sounded a little too good to be human. and they end up with some kind of black mark on their self-sovereign identity, and they can't erase it because it's on chain, right? Like that would suck. It would be like the permanent shadow ban you couldn't erase, that you weren't even privy to accepting in some versions of decentralized identity. So I think that we have to be really careful with that, and I think we should probably look at AI as just a more advanced word processing tool. Then we ought to look at it as a threat to individuals in a sort of us versus them kind of way.
Interesting. Lisa, what do you think about AI, bots, and social media metaverse?
I watched the hearing the other day on AI and actually talked about it on my show the other day. And I thought they had some really interesting points. They had 3 experts on there, and they were trying to talk about this one guy was like, we need to be really careful about not creating kind of a ministry of truth kind of thing around it, because that does threaten the freedom of speech, kind of what Greg is just speaking about. But there is an issue of, there are things in place for counterfeiting money. And there probably should be some penalties in place for counterfeiting a human, to make it a deterrent to counterfeit a human. I believe that our census is wrong right now. I don't believe there's as many people as they say in the US and maybe even the world. And I believe they use those numbers to create pockets of power and have things happen in the US with those numbers and move things around. So I think I saw another article where they were talking about scanning people's faces for their identity. And the way they were validating that was using the flush of your blood flow to see that that's a real human or not. And I sent in the private chat, there was this huge line of people that are lining up for this new coin, Open AI CEO's World Coin for
so
crypto ID,
fucked up.
like very Utopia 1984 crazy pants thing. I don't know. This is just a really dangerous world line we're walking into. I mean, people have talked about, the chip in the hand, and was the jab going to be that? What are you submitting to when you let them scan your face or your whatever? Or it's a really interesting. They were talking about deep fakes. We've all seen some of these political ads that maybe even the political party didn't do, but they could be really destructive to the other party. It looks very real. It sounds very real. And so they were saying like those should be like forbidden so many months before a election or something. So if you see one at all, that's a deep fake, because either side's not allowed to do it. I don't know. They had some, and then it went into, Marsha Blackburn was talking about, she used it talking about artists because she's from Nashville. And she said, what can we do to protect artists with image, voice, and self from being copied? So do you own, is it your IP, your intellectual property, your voice, your image, yourself? I think about John, you're a comedian, your ideas, your jokes, your skits, all of that, that's your IP, that's your property. What your sound, your voice is your IP. Do we own that? And so to think about this AI being able to copy that without your permission is a form of theft and should be taken seriously. And so it's going to be really interesting. I think that we are going to be able to and it's got our God-given property or rights or our self-sovereignty, our ownership of ourself. And that should be protected. I believe it is protected under the Constitution. And I think it's going to be interesting. We may be able to tokenize that and license or trade our IP sometime at some point.
Well, Lisa, I think you raised a really good point. I think that we have to offset that too, though, with the brilliant creative culture that we get from sort of the remix element of the internet, right? Like memes would not exist if we strictly enforce everybody's IP. And a lot of really cool renditions of songs that sucked when they were originally made that get remixed into something great wouldn't exist. And
right, but people can buy
we
a
have to.
license.
I think we have to have some sanity brought to how we think about the remixing of things, and sort of like the idea behind taking all of this data, and because somebody wrote a prompt that said, I'm trying to get something that sounds like Taylor Swift in this voice, right, or whatever, that they're abusing that IP. I think it depends on the intent, right? Like if they're trying to pretend that they are Taylor Swift and use that for gain by essentially a trick, by fraud,
Right.
then that's not really a fair use. But
if we use blockchain,
if
then
they're
it can be
doing, like,
tokenized, and Taylor Swift can be rewarded or be compensated for the
but
use
if there's
of her. She can
Taylor
license
Swift,
it.
you know,
Well, but
and she's
that's the
doing
thing,
a
though.
metaverse venue, then we probably want to allow that sort of thing to exist, right? Because that could be really cool.
And that's
She
the
could choose
important
that.
thing you mentioned is like, well, you could buy a license, but the problem is you actually can't. It's like, okay, if you want to do something and create something that maybe it's the most important thing in the world, maybe it's maybe it's something that would bring real value to the world, and yet you can't create it legally because they don't want to, and here's the thing. I've approached several of them, and it's never gone anywhere. They don't have any desire to like say license what they call the stems in the the music world, where it's the partial recordings of different songs, where it might be a section, it might be a single track. They're sitting on a freaking gold mine if they wanted to license that, so that legally these creators could come in and pay for a little bit and whatever else, and not have any concerns about getting takedown notices on YouTube. But guess what? The takedown
They don't want you to have that. They don't want you to have the song, man.
They don't want
especially reserved for their favorite people.
And they want the power. All the DMCA stuff it's all ridiculous. Really crazy. Where Hollywood and the music industry essentially own the Congress. I mean, if anything, they're representatives of those various industries. The banks, Hollywood, the music.
If you want to fix the IP
but that's not
system,
the artist having it.
You want to fix the IP system, you should make it a waiver of your personal rights to refuse to sell your stuff on the open market. If you're not going to sell your thing, if you're literally going to sit on it like the guys behind Chrono Trigger sat on it over at Square Enix and didn't make anything with it for like 2 decades or whatever.
Maybe that's what, because Lisa, you're talking about, the artist should want that. I mean, the artist, I was blown away when I was a musician at the time. When the internet came out, it's like the labels are going to go away because I don't need distribution once you have MP3s. I was unfortunately a musician before MP3s existed, right? So I had to deal with doing downsampling and all types of stuff on the internet. But it's essentially it should have gone away, but it didn't. Why not? They still control it, and it's a really crazy thing that when blockchain came around, another opportunity, because exactly, if I'm an artist, I have a direct way to distribute, and now I have a direct way to accept payment with crypto or something, and a direct way to prove that you have a licensed copy of it, or even to give you something only you can open. Guess what? None of that's gone anywhere. Why? Because the regulators,
because of the middlemen,
to happen. And why don't they want it to happen? Because they're owned by the same people that have controlled all this stuff before. And it's not just music, it's everything. So anything you can think of that when you came in 2017, 2016, 2018, and everyone is thinking, oh my God, all of the things that can be done with this, we can now have control. It's like, well, that's not going to happen here, buddy. Maybe if you were over, in Asia or something, but not over here. So I don't know. It's horrible.
I think it's still possible, but we have to get rid of the middlemen,
Well, we have to get rid of. Yeah, we have to get rid of. I've talked about that before. Right?
But and really, we do need to revamp the IP system. Like it needs to be needs to be procreative, right? Like you can't have a system where just out of spite or because you want to gatekeep the magical power of access to this, like if we wanted to get a Billie Eilish tune to open the show, good luck, right? We don't just not have the money for it. We don't have the contacts to get the website where you ask for it to call you back, right? Yeah. They only want that going to people who are in the little club. And to me, like, I would hate to see the internet just lose all of its ability to riff out of a desire to overly protect.
The more you close it down,
that
because it makes it more funny when it's illegal. You know, if Pepes are illegal in Europe, they are radically more funny than they were before. So that's just how it works. Yep. So, you know.
Fun example, by the way. Try going on ChatGTP right now or Stable Diffusion or whatever. Anybody out there who has it open, and just type in like a cartoon mouse being yelled at by a pantsless duck in a sailor suit in the style of 1950s hand painted animation, and see what comes up. And tell me, is that infringing on Disney's copyrights and trademarks?
Sure, they would think.
Because right, like, so if we let them have that, then we go into a black hole of everything is restricted.
I wouldn't be. I would make a bet with you, Greg. Any of these that are VC funded, any of those platforms that you would put that in that are VC funded, already have a Disney filter. I would almost guarantee to it. Now, even as lazy as they are, their lawyers don't have much to do, and there are a lot of them. So I guarantee to you that their friends and their money is in those platforms, and there's a filter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
All right, Dave, perfect timing. We're going to move on to the next question. I love it. Our next question is coming from a friend of the show, I would say he's a friend of the show. Greg Lang, what are the biggest risks posed by recklessly implementing various SSI, DID, self-sovereign identity / decentralized IDs to the profusion of metaverses and the cypherpunk ideas underpinning crypto, Web3, self-sovereign social media more broadly? Greg, do you want to kick this one off? Do you have any ideas about this?
Well, you know, I've been asking myself this a lot lately because I've seen a lot of enthusiastic talk about really more decentralized identity, because to say self-sovereign identity is kind of like the way you say it if you're opposed to what they consider to be a great depth of amazing use cases that they currently don't have access to, like the ability to do under collateralized loans on chain and the ability to import a lot of things that, you know, I think frankly the world could be better without, if we just learn to, you know, learn to do things a little differently. We don't need some of these things, and at the same time, I think there's some serious risks built into doing this rushed without having principles governing it, right? Like, for example, would it be dystopian if you could only get your self-sovereign identity one time and it was forever linked to you and there was nothing you could do about it? Probably. Like, the full concept of self-sovereign identity from a cypherpunk perspective is that you can have ephemeral identities. You can discard them. You can be done with them. You can have several at once for different purposes, right? That's the only way that self-sovereign identity is truly not a trap for you. And I think we risk, if we rush into it, really tamping down on sort of the creative spirit of humanity that metaverses are going to allow and enable. And same for decentralized social. I think if we rush into it, we run the risk of needing Web 4 really bad, because we're about to Web 2 it with self-sovereign identity, with the way that I see people talking about it. Like, it's just this great thing, and we have to run into this as fast as we can. And by the way, go get scanned at WorldCoins with your org kiosk or whatever.
Oh my God.
Dave, since you missed the last question, what do you think about self-sovereignty? Do you think we should all just burn our birth certificates? And
I think that we should have that option. Yeah. Yeah, the WorldCoin thing, the scanning, like it, the whole design of that thing, since Greg brought it up, is just so cartoonishly Dr. Evil, isn't it? It's like scan into the orb. I don't know. There's a lot of I saw even was it the WEF or the United Nations or somebody published something officialish about Web 4 already, right? And I was just like, Web 4, and they outlined all this stuff about augmented reality and interoperation with AI and this whole thing, right? Which to me is still like what Web 3 is. So it surprises me that like they're talking about Web 4. And the only thing that I can figure is exactly what Greg said, which is there is this attempt to, number one, own everything and commandeer it to call it Web3 or to call it decentralization while still controlling it in a centralized way somehow. And two, there's a reluctance. I think Greg also said this, but there's a reluctance to doing things differently. And I think that's the big friction point is everything's just got to be reimagined. It's not like there are some things that we could totally just carry over and decentralize it in a way that's meaningful, but there are some things that can't be done that way, and you have to just operate differently as a species. Like this is what we do now. This is how we live now.
And one of those have to go after fraud with men with guns. Can we just dispense with that part and come up with a way to make sure that
right? And one of those things is ID. One of those things is what your identification, what your your passport says, who it says you are, that kind of thing. Is it okay to have multiple identities depending on where you are that day? Maybe in the past that wasn't okay because there wasn't decentralization technology that will allow communities to manage themselves without collecting people's personal information and attaching a credit score to it for their whole lives or whatever, or for 7 years anyway.
Well, and I think, Dave, you're onto the right point there, but I got to add this one thing too. Like even people who are you think of as pro-decentralization, like if you're not, in the camp that Vitalik Buterin is an evil robot who is trying to get us all to eat the bugs, right?
Paid by China.
His decentralized solution to this, the soul-bound token idea, is actually really dystopian and has some scary implications when you implement it. And it operates on all the same principles that blockchains are based on, but it just has very different sort of Cobra effect backlashes that you have to sort of think about for a minute. For you're like, oh yeah, maybe we. Well, yeah,
that's what I think. That's what I was trying to say. Is that's like a bastardization of what the intent is. It's like getting a tattoo or a social security number or something attached to you forever that follows you around.
Do we want to build our own social credit system for ourselves?
Kinda, in a way, kinda, yeah. Because and when I say that, I mean that there are ways to organize people today that did not exist when the way that we currently are organized was invented, right? Mm-hmm. And so it could, like, what's the main thing is to make sure that people are relatively safe, make sure people relatively have what they need, within reason. And if we can, give people some things that they want that make life awesome as well along the way. And we can do that with like this system of punishing folks when they do bad things, or we can do it with the system of, like, we train our dogs, a reward system, and incentivizing people to do the right thing. And we haven't tried that last part really that much. We've tried the fuck out of punishing people and throwing them in jail and murdering them and making sure that they can't ride the bus if they have bad social credit scores, the system of punishment. We haven't really explored too much the system of rewards that will lead, in general, people to do the right thing and look out for each other because it benefits them and it's profitable and it's helps them live their life better. We can go that way.
Right. There's such a spirit of I actually tweeted this out yesterday, a spirit of collaborative cooperation in blockchains that I don't think people who were really rooting for a rush to self-sovereign identity have taken fair account of. You know, like this whole system that it's even standing, it is kind of, it's amazing. It's a testament to the fact that we all want to work together and we all want to collaborate. Mostly as a species. Yeah, there's bad actors, but make up a tiny fraction. And the majority of people doing this are people who just want to work together to build a better world. And I don't think you need to, you don't need to have a quote accountability mechanism built into it in order to make it work mostly right.
I would add one more thing too, which is that one of the reasons you need to collect people's, like, to have everybody have the same ID and to know exactly, for the government to know exactly who somebody is at all times and have this record that goes along with you, is you got to know who to punish, because it's unfair to punish the wrong person. You got to know who you're punishing. But if you're built on a reward system, you don't have to care who anybody is. If you do the good thing, you get the good reward. And so then you don't necessarily need that, like, centralized identity database that you can never escape, kind of thing. That's the other thing.
And totally on top of that too, like, why not give people the right to wipe the slate clean and try again if they fuck up? Why do we have to let like criminal records follow people around for their entire lives even after they serve 20 years in prison? It's not really right, in my opinion. I think we should be very guarded about sort of rebuilding the ability to hunt people down where they live into the new web.
And we're all here at Den all about second chances and helping each other. Lisa and Joe, what do you think about this?
Go first, Lisa.
Well, I was just listening to you guys talk, and distribution came into my mind versus decentralization as maybe part of the solution. I think that, we're quick to, in the crypto world, go decentralization is the answer to everything. And I think there are places where centralization is maybe more efficient and a key or part of the solution, but to put safeties in place for the individuals and privacy issues, there maybe needs to be or a distribution of power or information that might create a better balance for humanity in the system and whatever. So I kind of think that might play in some situations.
That's a super important point. Like, why are we not talking about building anonymity into the blockchain before we start talking about building optional self-sovereign identity? Right?
Well, if you go onto Den, you can do things anonymously there. You just don't get rewarded for it. That's all it is. But you do get to participate and talk and say what you want. You can have all the freedom of speech you want without any of the perks. So, Joe, anything you want to say about this?
First, two things before I answer the question. I want to award 1,000 points to Greg that he can distribute as he wants. 1,000 points, roundtable points, for the image that came with the post, because that was so perfectly applied, and the fact that it is the reply is so densely compacted, conceptually. Well, I mean, it's like, man, I had to read it like 3 times before it's like, okay, wait, he means this, okay, right? And so I would say it's radically dangerous if we lazily just roll into, let's use this system, because damn it, guess what the government's going to do? They're going to throw out something that comes freaking out of a bunch of
Basel III regulations will get imposed, and all of a sudden digital banks will have to ask for your identity.
And what's worse,
pieces,
it's not even that they're written by non-experts. It's worse that they're written by experts in the industry that essentially write these regulations or new rules, and then whether it's parliamentary or if it's over here in Congress, that they go through some committee, and all these political changes happen, and it's craziness. Right. It's not the way to build anything, and that's probably what we're going to get if we don't do it ourselves. And what it comes to, though, because what Dave was mentioning, but in fact I think what all 3 of you mentioned was essentially lining out 2 groups, where one group literally does have a history of being murderous. They're involved. They're paid for by the most murderous elements in our human history, They're the ones who are now in power who don't want this crypto. And then the other side are just the normal people, the creators, the builders, the people who just freaking go to work every day, who would like some amount of power over their own money, what they earn, what they can do with that money, all that stuff. And guess
Yeah.
what? They are absolutely opposed to each other, and it's super crazy and dangerous. And I think more and more people need to start thinking of software itself, and maybe this pattern of decentralization, and how you can
Yep.
build a new type of system as a weapon against those murderous savages that rule us today.
We should test it out. Anything we build, we should test it out on Congress and the administrative state and the executive branch, and all of the governments should be they should get the identity systems first.
Yeah.
And if they still want them after we get to use them against them for a good solid 5 or 6 years, then maybe we're on a system that.
Well, I mean, you think about it. If you were to go back to ancient Greece and develop, say, okay, here's all the technology, here's what's possible today. Do you think they would arrange it the way it is? No. If there were an apparatus to surveil every human on Earth, right? I think you think about that. People who are interested in freedom at a philosophical level or not even freedom, just what's right. It would make far better sense for that surveillance apparatus to be focused directly on those who are now serving us in Congress.
Yeah.
That
is where the transparency needs to be.
So that we know.
Right. We should have the classified files on them, not the vice versa.
Yes.
So anyway.
There you go. If you have any classified files, go ahead and throw them up on the internet. We all know that always works out great. And that's been this episode of World Blockchain Roundtable. We have been talking about cryptocurrency, the SEC, college football, XRP, and everything else. Go line up and get your speak into the orb and get your whatever tokenized thing that's happening. Sounds hilarious to me. Join us next week, and we're going to be talking about the top 3 legacy systems to decentralization using blockchain. Joe, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about on our way out?
Dragon Chain Legal Fund. If you have money, go put some there if you can and are willing. And also the orb. Don't go do that. The people you see in lines. I saw a press thing. The people you see in lines at the orb are literally paid. There's an entire story about how 500,000 people were paid to do this, and that a lot of those people are now selling their identities on the open market. So, anyway, it's just all crazy stuff.
All right. Dave, anything you'd like to let people know about?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about path to further decentralized DIN as a whole. It's a hybrid system, so there are centralized parts and decentralized parts. And something we've been discussing for a while is further decentralization. So that's going to be a topic on the DIN-DAO call today at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can find a link to join that call in the DIN-DAO layer on DIN. And that's where to go.
There you go.
Yep.
Greg, anything you want to let people know about?
Just an idea I just had. Like, if you really want to go see all the people lining up to touch the metal orb and have their soul sucked away by WorldCoin in exchange for a token airdrop, like, hang out at the back of the line and make sure you have a totally legit token on you, like Colt or maybe Liquidity or one of the really decentralized ones, and offer to buy it at a slight premium over spot, and just accumulate as much as you can so that you can then later dump it and plunge this dystopian machine into the bowels of shitcoin history where it belongs.
I think he has to get in once. He has a quota, right?
Yeah, it's a quota. Once I'm legally required to play that video a certain amount of times. Lisa, anything else you'd like to let people know about?
Speaking of our friend Satoshi Sean, everybody keep him in your prayers and thoughts. He's improving and hopefully will be back on the show with us soon. I would love for everybody to join me on my YouTube channel, like when Lisa. We're changing things up, and I'm headed to Vegas September 29th through October 1st to be a part of the Silver Symposium, and we're merging crypto and precious metals and having talks around that. There'll be a bunch of old silver bug guys, silver and gold bug guys, and a bunch of crypto people there too. So it'll be a great time.
Sounds great. The
Caesar's
future and the
Palace.
past coming together. Fort Knox is changing. If you want to find out more about me, go to johnbranch.info. Just be nice to each other. You know, try to be positive. Even though things kind of suck sometimes. We'll see you next week. Like I said, we're going to be talking about top 3 legacy systems to decentralize using blockchain. Leave a comment or a question that's blockchain related, and we'll talk about it. You can throw in audibles, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around after this for current events. We're talking aliens. We're talking XRP. We're talking college football. We're talking the Mandela effect, the Howie Mandela effect. It's important.
The aliens are coming to buy our bags. That's what I've heard.
That's what they're coming for.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A doctrinal approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.
Hey, we're back.
Hey, can I say something real quick? And I'm kind of sorry that John's not here because I think I have something he could work on in a bit. Think of this now. It's niche humor, but the Howie Mandela effect could effectively describe what the SEC has done. Think about this.
They're claiming it's been that way all along.
I never really tied that together.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
No, it's always been this way. No, we just use the existing law. We've always said it was like this.
That's right. Isn't that crazy?
That's great.
Exactly. And your orange juice stand is selling securities, you bastard.
There's a forum of like Mandela Effect forum on the internet. And it's funny because the people that discuss things in that forum, they talk about things as if the Mandela effect is literally just people popping in and out of different parallel universes, you know? And so when somebody brings up a new thing, like, do you remember it this way or do you remember it that way? They'll say, well, the universe that I'm from, this is what happened. Or the universe that I'm from is this is what happened. So they're talking to each other like they're, space travelers or, universe dimension travelers.
I've never seriously talked to anybody about that. But I mean, I've seen pictures of the Fruit of the Loom logo from old, and I've seen, I know some of them probably are Photoshopped, but I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, is that, what is it?
Yeah, that's the one of like, did it have the basket or did it not have the basket or something?
Yeah,
the cornucopia.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. There's vivid memories that I have that are not apparently how things are. But this is where
I got the Berenstein Bears was one of them.
the Berenstein Bears.
I swear to God, like the folks over at Quantum have it right.
Yeah.
Like with the whole ability to manifest an alternate reality.
And you know what? I'm very OCD about spelling, so I know it was not Stain.
Right. So the thing about Berenstain Bears for me is the only reason I feel so strongly that it was not Berenstain is because I remember arguing there's a German E-I-I-E pronunciation where Americans say it one way and Germans will say it another way. And I remember arguing, is it Berenstein or Berenstein because of that?
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm just like, wait a minute. If I'm arguing about whether the EI means this or that or how it's pronounced, how was it ever, the letter A instead of the letter E?
It wasn't.
Kind of thing.
The worst one is the Jaws, the end of Moonraker, 007 Moonraker, right? Do you know this one? This one was newer. That at the very end, I remember seeing this as a kid. It was like the first 007 movie I believe I ever saw. And Jaws was the big guy that, you know, beat everybody up and stuff, and he had, you know, he was called Jaws because he had this grill, right? So just all these silver teeth. And at the very end, he meets this girl, and she smiles, and she has these very prominent braces, and so they both smile and they go off to, you know, into the sunset, and it kind of placates Jaws. He's no longer violent, you know. He's like, oh, he found someone like him. Now, if you watch the movie, no braces. And I'm like,
I don't remember that.
It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. And anyway, it's crazy. So
I have an unfortunate curse of memory. So I'm totally with you there on that one. I'm with anyone who thinks there originally was an E in the children's book. And for anybody else who's paying super close attention to ridiculous details, right?
Okay. So
there was a line in the Chronicles of Riddick where he said, "I am the monster," and they took it out. Or it got hedged out of it. Like,
wow.
By the way, don't ask me.
This
dredge up memories because I have way
this
too much
makes me
media
happy
stuff
though,
in my head.
because especially the two of you are always very rational about any of the numerology stuff and all that. So the fact that you both believe in this, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm at least, I'm not crazy. So
the cool thing is that if we do the whole like recorded history on blockchain thing,
yes,
you can either prove that, you know, like, so if you hash something into the Bitcoin blockchain and then like in 20 years they say, no, it's always been that, you can prove whether it was or not. Or multiple dimensions, you know, theory or whatever.
If it's extra dimensional,
if it's extra dimensional, it'll still,
Yet you would here's the thing, two things you would have there. First of all, if it weren't extra dimensional, you would at least know when they decided they needed to change it. That's when it would happen, right? If it is extra dimensional, you would at least have some evidence of when a cross happened, right? Or, you know, how is it if you are in this dimension that your mind remembers that other dimension? That's
unless you go in
this dimension, it was
time
hashed
vortex theory
in the past, the new way
historical revision, right? It could literally have destroyed all specific knowledge of a thing having been a certain way by essentially decrystallizing quantum dice rolls, right? You could have it rewound essentially to an earlier quantum state, and none of us would actually know, as the dice rolls came out differently, that we were in a different reality.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is like the proof concept, the measurable proof concept that Dragon Chain employs. It only works if you assume that we all have a shared reality.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so if there's weird shit happening that we don't understand, and you can pop in and out of different dimensions where history actually it always has been this way, then nothing matters anyway at that point. But
Have you guys ever played with that app that the quantum guys came out with, where you can go randonodding?
I've read about it so much. So we had a case when I was in Seattle where those kids did it, and they wanted something exciting to happen, right?
Right, and they found the dead body.
Yeah, they found a suitcase that no one would have found on the shore. I'm like, what in the world is this about? It's crazy, and it happens over and over again, right?
I have a scientific test I want to try with somebody who wants to do that app with me sometime, because
I
think we can create
I do not want to find a dead body.
Alternate reality if we both go on different quests at the same time, that we set the intent to communicate with one another in the alternate space.
I like it. That would be fun.
So
what was that TV show that was basically like that? Not Loopers, but
Quantum
something.
Leap, or
Like
wasn't
remote
quite
viewing stuff? Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
that stuff's cool too, though.
Yeah, I have
Quantum
friends
Leap?
that do that.
no, not quantum.
remote viewing, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I forget what it's called. There was a show there where they were trying to get back to their own. They were trying to get back to their own like base reality, their own universe.
Maybe it was Quantum Leap.
I don't think so. Not my universe.
I can't remember what Quantum Leap was, right? I just remember the name of it.
That was where the guy like jumped into different people in different places, and he had to
He would be
solve
different
whatever their
people
issues
even.
were before he could make the jump to the next place. Always hoping he was going to make it home, right?
Huh.
And he had an invisible friend who was like some kind of silly actor.
He was a hologram or something, right?
Yeah.
His friend. Yeah, man. Wow. It's kind of like Knight Rider combined with the
Or the hand from the thing from.
but yeah, Knight Rider combined with the Equalizer, right?
Yep.
Just making
Knight Rider meets Tenet. No.
We should do more mashups like that. Anyway,
Goodness.
there's no creativity in Hollywood at all.
Yep.
There's none at all. So anyway,
It's this
more
algorithmic thing,
I
right?
had something I wanted to ask you.
Oh, the
guys.
crashed aliens.
If you guys noticed this, because it bothered the shit out of me because it was so much parsed language. Like, say you had I don't know, she was a congresswoman, I don't know what she was. She was asking about extraterrestrials and or extraterrestrial craft, right? The guy says, I couldn't talk to you about that unless we're in a skiff in a top secret facility, right? She's okay.
Right.
Next
go into the
question.
censorship room.
Yes.
Right?
Next question.
Executive session.
She then asks, okay, did you recover what they call it, biologics?
That's what he said. Yeah.
Okay, so but and something about this, and then she said human or non-human, and he said non-human biologics, right? And I'm just like, anybody who's asking these questions, okay, non-human biologics, extraterrestrial non-human biologics, or because and that's what even people on 4chan were saying. It's a
right,
it's
or
a freaking
transhuman,
craft that
post-human,
brought
non-biologics.
you recovered of a Russian
non-human
monkey or Russian dog. Yes, biologics in a spacecraft that we recovered.
So,
And-
like, what if it was just like a Russian monkey test ship that crashed, and we recovered that?
And here's the thing, because my thought is, yes, that's what it is, and they used this this interview back and forth to parse the language so that it sounds like, holy shit, extraterrestrial aliens, bodies recovered. They're real. And why are they doing this right now? I mean, they could have done
the
this
whole
years
hearing
ago.
was that, Joe, because yesterday the DOJ dropped charges on SBF.
Well,
whatever the case,
the whole thing was a distraction.
I mean, all of these things.
And then
Ukraine,
the Hunter thing was going on. They let Hunter walk. Because
he lost that, right? That's the other thing too. They changed that story.
No, the judge backlashed on the settlement. He didn't get
do you know
his
why? Do you know why?
Because his attorneys called in pretending to be opposing counsel and tried to get them to drop the evidence.
Yes.
Like,
and yet, if you go on Twitter, all of the most recent is they're trying to push that the judge asked the question about, well, will he be chargeable in the future? And
but that was not
but the issue was actually
it was that fraud that happened. And it's crazy.
That wasn't the guys. There's another technical issue under here that a lot of people are missing. The one of the biggest reasons that the judge started to balk was because they tried to bring the settlement under a provision of their own self-made in-house law that was sort of at the discretion of the prosecutor.
Yes, we know that's
to try to make it so they didn't. The judge wasn't required to sign the settlement.
Right. We know that's an issue, but the thing that they have stopped talking about is the fact that Biden's attorneys called in impersonating congressional staff to withdraw evidence from the case.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were like, wait a minute, what's this about? Right.
So about the Secret Service not be able to figure out whose blow it was. Like, I mean,
that was supposed to be, they were supposed to have an answer to the judge last night by 9 p.m. And I've been looking all morning trying to find what happened. Otherwise, they were supposed to get sanctions. I can't find anything.
I saw the email about that. I didn't look into it very deeply, but I saw where there's an email, there's a record of that exchange, where at least a report of it saying, hey, here's what happened. They called in and did this and this. So I would be interested to see if that's like, that should not just fizzle out like, oh, that was yesterday's news.
Banana Republic. There's no other way you could describe it. This whole goddamn thing is a freaking joke. So, why we are even considering these laws that they pass as anything more than corporate influence. It's like, oh, why is this way? It's like, oh, because the Dole Banana Company didn't want you. They want you to be able to buy this. So it's just the craziest shit ever. It's like, why are the why do air conditioners not do as well anymore? Oh, because that patent ran out, and the company that owned the patent had to make that thing illegal for CFCs, and it's like all this other crazy stuff. It's all a joke, and this is just a big piece of it. So,
and we're supposed to just
anyway.
keep swallowing the
The
lies.
SBF thing, by the way, too. I will try to avoid offending anyone, but if you want to bring that back up, let's
Offend
bring up
away.
that gorgeous mug of Sam Bankman-Fried. And that's the other thing too.
Why are you showing scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark, man? The Ark of the
Is
Covenant
this
needs
even?
to
Is
stay
this
closed.
even itself something related to? It's all.
Well,
an
and
act.
why does he get
Bankman?
to walk unless he rolled on like Pelosi, Maxine Waters?
Yeah, right. He gets to walk because he didn't roll on them. That's the whole damn point. Because the DOJ and FBI are controlled by those same parties. They probably got kickbacks from Sam Bankman-Fried. It's like his parents still have those properties that he bought with investors' money, right? It's like how is any of this possible without blood being spilled? Because I don't see how, if and people who lost that, I luckily did not put any money ever on FTX. I only had an FTX account because they bought what they buy Block. What was the name of the announcement group that had an app?
It was
Block. I can't remember. It's gone now.
Whatever
It was
the
actually
case.
pretty useful.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It wasn't BlockFi, right?
Might have. It was the one
I
that
think it might have been.
would announce that we had an account so we could announce Dragon Chain.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, of course they won't pursue the campaign finance charge.
No, they're going to let him off on everything they can.
Is that because elections are coming up and they don't need the case being in the news, or
reason? The other small reason is how much money he helped them launder between the U.S. and Ukraine and the American politicians. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason. And the second is
he knows we're corrupt, right? Like if he were to talk about his interactions with Gary Gensler candidly in public, or if he were to even threaten to, he would end up getting whacked.
Yeah,
like this guy is probably playing along with them in exchange for leniency, and by playing along they mean shut the fuck up and sit down.
Hey, I wonder, Greg, could Dragon Chain call SBF as a witness? Could we get info from him about their conversations with Gensler related to
maybe
crypto? I hadn't thought about that, because it's like that would be relevant to our case, knowing what the hell did he talk about crypto behind closed doors and how it fits into what we're trying to build software, right? And these two fuckers, related however they are, because they're all it's freaking so ridiculously all joined together. What his dad worked with Gary, his mom. It's like all these people.
You guys would have to precede it by one hell of a publicity stunt, but you could probably do it. Like
here's
what you guys should consider doing: hoax rebrand Den.social to be Twitter now that Elon's not using it anymore.
We'll adopt a bird in the name and all that stuff.
Nasty headlines about it. Then you.
He doesn't want it. We'll adopt it. Sure.
Yeah, like move the court to change all the names too. Like
what's interesting to me is
it's our new chat feature. It's called Twitter.
Is that Dragon Chain specifically builds software that prevents the type of fraud that FTX conducted.
Yeah,
and.
Nobody wants it.
And FTX was the one that was getting the pass while Dragon Chains is being drugged through the legal system through courts.
He was actually helping them write the fucking rules.
Oh yeah, he was. What do they call it? Kicking out the ladder. He was helping them like oh, nobody should be able to do what we did to succeed. So yeah, that kind of thing. Pathetic. Just let us go ahead and get away with it, and then I'll help you write that. I'll let you know what we did so that you can tell them what not to do.
I will, by the way, tell you. That's going to be, you could say, I don't know if you guys know the test for society. What's it called? The shopping cart test.
The shopping cart test. Yeah.
I mean, I think similarly, it would be something like this. I hate to say this, I don't hate to say it but I wish I didn't have to. I think the way that America reacts to SBF, getting off scot-free, reacts to how they're controlling this industry is really kind of it's a big indicator of whether America is really there anymore or not. I mean, because I think it's gone. I mean, there's a decent chance, and I've seen some really interesting stuff recently about solutions to our current state nationally. But looking at it historically, what would the Romans do? What would the Greeks do? But I think it's a big indicator if people just kind of ignore this, because this essentially that the circus and the bread have become so massively efficient and powerful that nobody gives a shit about any of this anymore. That's the craziest thing right now, right? I mean, because entertainment is great now. The beauty is entertainment starting to blow out. It's really sucks. Yep. Nobody gives a shit about that anymore. Even sports, they're all becoming too political. And bread, everybody realizes. I mean, maybe that's
AI generative video is going to destroy sports. How much better will basketball be?
The child sex trafficking will destroy sports.
Hell,
when people realize that my
kids
Super Bowl is the largest trafficking event
on the marble races, because the marble races are more fun than watching the sports now. So anyway,
it's kind of screwy. But what bothers me the most about it, though, is like how obnoxiously smug that guy looks. Like he just has a face that you want to slap, even when he's saying something that sounds like it's nice. Like it's just, and maybe it's just all of the Gary Gensler pubes stuck in his teeth still. But something about him just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Hey, what about Bradley Sherman's argument the other day that inflation is good for you? He was talking about how the government prints money, but when we do it, it's good for you.
He was talking about Saragoshi, though. Was he? Now here's the thing. In that Saragoshi,
what did he call Satoshi?
Saragoshi Nakamiro or something like that. It was freaking crazy.
Is that what he called Satoshi Nakamoto?
Here's the thing. I saw it out of context, and the thing that blew my mind, if it is correct, he said people think blockchain is innovative, right? And it's the same line that Gary has had, that really kind of blew my mind, that Gary's given us tech tips, right? He's like, oh, you know what the hell innovation and technology.
This is BlackBerry Gary, for fuck's sake. This guy used his private email during the freaking.
He said the same thing, that blockchain's not innovative. They're all saying AI is innovative. Why? Because they can control AI with filtering. You can't control people on blockchain. So AI. The thing is, though, he said he actually countered the innovation of blockchain and Saragoshi himself with, he literally said Enron. And what was the other he gave?
What?
Yes, he said Enron. I'm like,
oh my God.
What? And I can't remember what the second one was.
Well, you know whose team he's on then. He's on Team Papa Bush. That's
how far off of
very
reality
telling.
can you veer before nobody will even humor you anymore?
Well, I just don't know. Here's the thing. Shame on that freaking California district that voted him in.
It's actually shame on him too, though, because he gerrymandered the shit out of that district after the last census.
Honorable society, any honorable society would lynch him when he visits home.
You think he goes home?
No, I don't. That's probably never goes home.
I don't know. He strikes me as kind of a freak, and he has there are a lot of porn studios there.
I actually,
at least to visit his favorite local donor.
I met Rockefeller before, because he did occasionally show up at his district, right? Man, yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying yesterday to somebody. It might have been you, Joe, chatting about the Bradley Sherman thing. Was that my only question? I don't question his motives, because we know that he's on payroll. We know that he's the vast majority of his funding is banks and bankers, and so that's who he's playing for, right? He's performing for them. What I question is and I also don't question that he thinks everyone is stupid, because he obviously thinks everyone is stupid by the way that the points that he's making and the arguments that he's making. And so my only question is are people as stupid as he thinks they are?
I think here's the thing. I think any of them that care about it, it's a very small portion that care about it that are that stupid. There are a lot of people that might or might not be stupid that don't give a shit about it, and that might be some of the problem because they're no. He literally in one of the clips said that we make money in America by printing money. You know, it was like,
I saw that.
Tell me
Yeah.
you don't fucking get economics.
That's
we
why
don't make that money.
Japan is selling their treasury bonds right now to.
That is, by the way, in the end,
yen.
I'm going to challenge you guys. Any societal, political, societal, even scientific question now that has some degree of drama around it, right? Some issue around it. Especially, and let's just assume, I'll be subjective here and say, let's say the ones that you yourself deem to be a bad thing, an issue, right? Okay, it's bad that that's happening. Why is it happening? It's bad that censorship, the voting problem, poverty, homelessness. I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to ask you, okay, we literally, and we've had this since after World War II. Well, maybe since the 70s, depending on how you look at it. Unlimited money, the unlimited capacity to produce as much money as they want. I would say I think the single biggest issue is that the Federal Reserve printing money is the single biggest, because it falls into every other issue. You would not have wars forever and ever and ever except for that. You would not have frankly, you wouldn't have all of the societal issues that we have right now, except that they have unlimited money and they can fund anything they want in propaganda to essentially separate everybody in the world. They can separate black and white. They can separate Christian and Muslim. They can separate they can separate any groups that they want because they have unlimited funds. If they didn't have that, it would all be.
You can't blame it all on the 1970s untethering though, because
no, it's 1913. I blame it all.
Yeah, it's the individual income tax is what did it.
Well, the Federal Reserve and which the only reason that the IRS exists is because it's their cops. It's
right.
That's the only reason that exists. And when you look at it, I saw a thing yesterday where they were pulling up Western investment returns along with capital gains and a bunch of other pieces in there. And a couple of things I hadn't quite pulled out myself, which I should have, but I'm not an economist, right? Is, obviously if I hold money, I get taxed because they're inflating it. So it's worth less in a year and 10 years. If I invest money, not only do I get taxed on its way out, because I'd recognize that, but the inflation itself also counters that. So capital gains is affected heavily by the inflation as well. So I think I got returns. It's like, oh, shoot, I have to give up some of them, but at least I got these returns. But I didn't really get returns.
You guys know how much the original income tax applied to what percentage of the population when they first rolled the thing out?
Tiny. Right?
It was like less than 3% of people in
that's how
the two bracket system had to pay. There's like no paying, or you pay if you're in this top echelon of earners. Yeah. And then, lo and behold, they magically inflate everybody into the top bracket, and they add more brackets. And so on, right? Like inflation it's an accelerant on taxation, and
democracy.
It's a separate tax.
That is an interesting path, isn't it? Inflating into the top bracket, because they tie it to a dollar amount, not a what do you even call it? It's like if you held gold and then magically that gold became less pure, like the percentage of the amount of gold that exists that you hold in the same block. Yeah,
I heard somebody talking about houses recently, and part of that there's so they're trying to pass this bill about you having to start paying capital gains on even unrealized gains, and your house would be included in that. Well, right now everybody's house we're in this very unusual thing where houses prices should be falling because of interest rates going up so much, but they're not. And part of that is because these huge corporations,
Yep.
monsters
are paying
own
20%
so
over
much.
list as soon as
Yes,
they go on the market.
because they own so much of the housing industry, and so they're manipulating the markets to keep the housing prices up. And if this tax thing goes in, people will have unrealized gains on inflated housing prices that aren't realistic, that they will be expected to pay,
which is insane, because how
all
the fuck are
under
you
the
supposed to
guise of
pay for it?
making the big guys pay their fair share. It's just another way to rob the
Right.
everyday middleman,
Right, just like-
or the
just
not
like what they-
middleman, but the middle America.
Just like why they hired all those 87,000 new agents, right? They hired those guys under the auspices of going after the wealthy, make them pay their fair share. But really what they wanted to do was implement a new tips system so they could go after wait staff, right? Like,
Oh, really?
And the $600 per
Right.
on your
the
PayPal.
tax gap they want to
transaction.
close
It's
is
not gonna
stuff
end
that they
well.
can't currently surveil.
Yeah. And the funny thing is they're doing it on both ends. It's like, okay, if you're going to print unlimited with no taxes, or if you're going to tax us to death with no printing, I can maybe understand it, but it is so over the top ridiculous that it's, blows my mind when
That's
I
what-
talk to
All the
relatives, I
while
don't get
letting
it.
Hunter walk for whatever he does. No consequences to the elites. They don't have to pay. They get to walk. But
how else,
we're
how else
gonna
would Joe Biden get the cocaine
throw-
that keeps him semi-functional?
Yeah, well, but we're going to throw every blue collar worker in prison so that we can, get that funding for our, legal slave system. It's just so corrupt.
The corruption, it bothers me less than people's ability to pretend that it doesn't exist, to be honest with you. I would much rather live under a system of, oh yeah, we're going to let Sam Bankman-Fried off because he did us a bunch of favors, and we like him, and he helped us win, and he
Right.
laundered money for us. So we're not going to charge him.
Right.
I would rather
And
that
everybody in power is
than
like
this
900
sort
years
of
old,
like
so they still think we're in the
delusionary,
Cold War.
like delusional
Pretend
system
it
that we
didn't
live.
happen.
This
Yeah.
pretend
So-
thing that's going on, and I would much rather know that like what I like knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like
Well,
other
if-
people admitting what's going on.
If you know what the rules are, and it was
Although in fairness to all those Alzheimer's patients in DC that live in our seats of power right now, like we got to cut them some slack because they really probably don't know what's going on.
Honestly,
actually
like,
not. I don't want
it's-
to cut them any slack. I'm just saying they probably are way
There
too
should-
old to do what they're doing.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. I won't lump people with, like the elderly into a demographic that I'm going to make fun of, but things are getting out of hand. Like I watched Mitch
Right.
McConnell talking to the press,
wow.
and
Right,
did you
he
see
had a
that?
transient
He
ischemic
just
attack.
stopped talking,
He either
forgot
had a
where he
stroke,
was. He had a little stroke, I'm sure, or
Maybe.
something. He stopped
Something.
in the middle of what he said the first half of a sentence, and he was about to give a list of examples of something, and then he just kind of spaced out and stood there. And then someone walked up, and if you listen, they reminded him where he was. They said, is there anything else you want to say to the press today? And then they sort of like led him away. And this is a lot of people that are running the country right now. And there should be a point where you politely say, hey, so
Well,
you can't really be here anymore because you're not able to function. I'm sorry, but
that's the 25th Amendment.
you're like really old.
Right.
I'm sorry, but you gotta not.
and
do
I,
this
and by
anymore.
the way, on term limits, I'd always heard people the reason you don't want term limits is because the bureaucracy stays forever, right? So if you have a leader in there that can't stay longer, they don't control anything. The bureaucracy does. But the reason that happens
So we got to get
is
rid of the bureaucracy
because
first.
exactly is the civil service system, which was instituted after Jackson came in because he was just bringing his political cronies in. They didn't like that, so they made it so that you couldn't do that anymore. That's what led to it. So these civil service bureaucrats that are in there,
Right.
they're entrenched, and they last, and they're just as old as the other guys half the time. But
Right.
they also get guaranteed retirement, early retirement. They make more money than you and I in the private sector by far.
And they're also like running the world's largest Cobra effect generation engine. Like they need to be accountable to the unintended consequences of their actions. rather than the intended purpose of the actions they do admit
That's
to.
why I always say that. If you, and I hate, this is not a kind thing, right? But at the same time, you can be kind in doing this. The people who work for those agencies should be shamed when they drive into their neighborhood. If you know something, it's like they are being paid more to essentially put under the thumb their fellow Americans, and they should be shamed. And the same with the politicians. I mean, there are some politicians I would say that are honorable. I'm sure there's more than I would like to say too, but some of them want to be there for the right reason. But gee, many freaking Christmas! How many of them are just they're just paid spokesman for I don't know. It's just all trash. The whole thing is a freaking clown show. So,
I mean, and I do think there is, like, I don't think it's necessarily mean to call it out either, right? Was it like Maxine Waters too had a moment very similar to Mitch McConnell's, where she like got back from being on sick leave for basically all of the first half of session, and
that was
it was Maxine Waters. It was,
from Barbara. No, is it Barbara? I'm forgetting. She was in a wheelchair when they wheeled her back up.
Oh,
where she was.
Feinstein.
Yeah, Feinstein. Yeah, like where she literally was gone, and then the reporter asked her, "So, what do you say to the critics who say you should resign?" Right, like because you weren't here. It's like, what do you mean? I was here the whole time. Like,
yeah. She also had she had nation state spies in her employ for a long time too.
I feel like it's kind of on our generation a bit too. We need more people running for office to get them the fuck out of there.
Yeah. Well, it's too expensive because you can't. There's no way you can beat some of those guys. So
I know. It starts to feel a little like elder neglect for us to let them continue to dodder around that building and like poop their pants and stuff.
I tweeted it is the literally the most
nursing home of
it's the most expensive and exclusive nursing home in the world is Washington D.C. So that's what it is. All right, I have to go early.
You can wear Depends and engage in insider trading.
Yeah. Who was, by the way? Who was the the guy who sharked himself and he was kind of Nadler, yes,
the penguin.
My goodness. It's like, come on, give me a break. It's like, you think these foreign leaders are scared of us?
No.
Anyway, all right.
Talk about cluster bombs.
Thank you guys.
All right, Joe.
Up early.
Thanks, dude.
I'll see you next week.
Great chatting with you like always. I'll see you. See you around 3 if you can make it, or 2 your time, or whatever time it is. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Cheers.
Wherever you are in the world.
Greg, you threw a question into today's episode that we didn't get to. I thought it was interesting. Let's bring it up real quick. You asked, are social media platforms and protocols lo-fi metaverses? And I thought that was a cool way of putting it. So lo-fi music is like not high resolution or not highest of quality, or it's not digital, or it's not that kind of thing, or it takes up a lot of space to put it on a cassette tape instead of an MP3 file or whatever. Well, however you want to
pixel art of
the pixel art of So
it's down another level, I guess.
Yeah, so like a lo-fi video game would be like a multi-user dungeon or MUD, where it's literally in a console and you say, I walk into this room, enter. Okay, you walk into this room, you see this. I whatever, you type it in and it's all in a text, console. That would be like a lo-fi video game, wouldn't it? And so if that's true, then are social platforms lo-fi metaverses? So it is sort of a world, its own thing that you go and you engage in, you interact with people. Twitter, for example, Twitter sphere.
It has a sense of place.
Yeah, people referred to it as the Twitter sphere. And things feel different on Twitter than they do on Facebook, than they do on Reddit, than they do on Google Plus, than they do on Den Social, than they do on Truth Social. They have a different vibe. It feels different. Things work differently. There's different rules, maybe, different types of people you meet. And so I would say, they kind of are like a low sci-fi metaverse of sorts, right?
Right. I
And
mean,
they
and
can
you can
even
take that you can
change.
take that analogy pretty far too. Like your graduating class was kind of your educational metaverse peer. You know, like if you want to take
Well,
it,
not
you can stretch
mine,
it pretty
because we
far,
weren't
right?
all on the internet yet.
Right.
Just
But
people
you
like
don't
me
have to be
who
on
were
the internet,
nerds that
right?
had a computer at home were on the internet. We were all
Yeah.
IRL friends in real
No,
life.
you were just the OG version of augmented reality, right?
Yeah, in high school, I was dialing up, not even on the internet, just modem to modem, my computer to my buddy's computer to play StarCraft, to play a match. It wasn't even online. It wasn't on the
Oh,
internet.
yeah.
It was like, Mom, don't pick up the telephone. You'll ruin my game.
Yeah, you just destroyed my Red Alert 2 coup de grace against my friend across
Yeah.
town. Right? Yeah.
Well, so we're in that transition right now with Twitter or X.
Yeah.
Because it's a social media platform, but Elon, or whatever being he might be, or whatever he is,
The
or what he's
entity known as Elon.
Yeah, exactly. Is wanting to transition that into not just the social media and engaging, but the everything app with a marketplace and being able to exchange payments. And so it's not just talking with each other,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's a community, it's a marketplace, it's payments, it's what else does he want on there? I can't remember what else he wants on there.
Everything.
Yeah,
It makes a little bit of sense. I mean, if you think about the barriers to marketplaces and to commerce and to paying people and things like that, a lot of time it's simply, I don't have you as a contact on this certain like payment rails.
Yeah.
Like if I have you as a Twitter friend or something, right? The idea is that I should be able to be like, yeah, pay this person money for a thing. Or if you want to sell a desk, you can be like, yeah, this person, you're buying my desk. Here's some secure way of telling you how to pick it up and give me money. And it all goes through the Everything app. It all goes through X as a streamlined, simplified, centralized way to do that. Yeah.
Because they trust X. That's what I
Yeah.
was talking with Miss Teen Crypto, and she does a lot of interviews out in Manhattan. She was talking to some kids that were her age, and she's like, why do you use Venmo and Cash App and whatever? And she's like, well, when we're out with each other and then we need to like split the bill and whatever, it's trusted because they don't trust cash. They don't use checks. But it's a way of trusting the money or the exchange. And I've been doing a lot of like estate sale stuff and thrifting and that kind of stuff. And so I'll go to some and they'll have Venmo or Cash App or whatever. Well, I'm not allowed on Venmo because I'm a patriot. And so my account is not valid on that. Yeah. And
I didn't get kicked off, but I did cancel my PayPal and my Venmo account because of their policy change. So
Same.
I'm allowed to be there, but I choose not to be.
No, I can't get mine to register.
But they do it because it's convenient, right? And it's like they know that they're going to
and they know that they'll get paid because they don't accept checks because you're going to walk away that minute with an item and they don't want that paper and they don't even trust cash sometimes. Some of the people are like, well, we had people give us, bills, it didn't work out. And I was like, you guys really need to look into crypto because you would have validated payment that's verified, and you don't have to trust this third party. And even on PayPal and Venmo or Cash App or whatever, those are all tied with banking systems that can, grab back.
They can ungive you your money. Yeah.
Yes, they can reach their hand into your bank account up to 6 months later and pull that money out. And so when I talk to them about that, then they're like, huh?
It typically doesn't happen on small purchases, but like, PayPal has created in the past very problematic, problems where like one case that pops into my mind was,
it's not Tether.
Yeah, I know, right? What if they use Tether? One case that I remember specifically was from somebody who sold an antique classic violin on eBay, and the person who bought it changed their mind and wanted to return it, but the person was like, nope, return, no returns. You bought it. All sales are fine, all that kind of thing. But PayPal would give them their money back if the item was damaged when they received it. So they destroyed this like irreplaceable,
God.
priceless fucking
awful.
violin, right? And took a picture of it and said, this was damaged when I got it. I want a refund. And PayPal reversed the transaction. And then there was no way to the person couldn't even get their violin back at that point. So stuff like that happens, especially when there's larger, more important transactions that go through. So yeah, what is X going to use as a payment? Some people think he'll use Dogecoin because he's a funny guy.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I think that a stable coin is, I don't know. I can see people using it. I've never used them when I didn't have to.
Stablecoins are weird because they don't really do what they say they do. They just anchor your token.
Yeah, they're pegged to something.
Dead weight of a
To
deflationary or
something,
that hyperinflationary asset.
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't mind. I don't necessarily mind the concept of a stable coin.
Right.
I've said in the past I would rather have one that was tied to the price of a Big Mac or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to hook it to any coin. I would totally hook it to Rye by Reflexer Finance because it's a pseudo stable coin in that it is algorithmically pegged to itself to reduce volatility. So it's not measured in dollars. It's measured in Rye, but it's anchored to itself using similar supply and demand mechanisms that like DAI used in its original form. And I say similar because it's not exactly the same. Like they've got some clever tricks in there, but it would be neat in two ways because one, you would be having to enable every Twitter user to use ERC20, which would be insane. That would be like that might be actually Elon Musk's big threat with X is like, what you guys do the wrong thing with me and I'm launching crypto for the masses, right? But Rye would be cool because it would actually depend. Right? It would take the dollar out of the equation while still maintaining some semblance of stability.
So I am points out two important things. One, Doge isn't going to work because of volatility. And what he means by that is there's the merchants, the problem where merchants need to have price security. Depending on how long they're holding it, they got to pay the bills. And they usually can't pay. This is like the bigger problem overall is the need to convert in the first place because you cannot pay your lease or your electric bill with the same currency you get paid for kind of thing.
Right, but Twitter's more of a service economy though. Do the same truths hold there? Is it if it's peer-to-peer payments for essentially entertainment subscriptions?
I think different industries are better poised to adopt it than others for that reason.
Right. Like I think Twitter creators might actually not really care all that much about volatility if they can thumb their nose in the face of everybody by pumping something like Doge to the top.
Well,
it wouldn't make it the one coin to rule them all, but it could live on Twitter.
As a way to transfer value, it works. It technically works. As a way to store value is a different question, though, altogether. And so how long do you need to store it for? Is it a time preference question? Is it
volatility becomes especially bad when you talk long-term contracts like leases or big supply contracts,
right. Or if you have to maintain a warehouse full of things that you sell.
Yeah. Something where the volatility
infrastructure
over time needs to be predictable enough, right? But you also don't have to use the same thing for everything in the modern world, right? Like in the crypto world, you can have purpose-built coin, right? And maybe, just maybe, services for entertainment subscriptions on a service like Twitter.
Well, this is why
is flexible enough that it doesn't matter.
That's why I think that I'm kind of surprised that utility tokens haven't really taken off more than they have, is because you could have that's what I feel like should get adopted first, because it's kind of like having rewards points that are easier to use.
Mhm.
Everybody already has like an app for their business or whatever. You could have like the picture behind you. Somebody let this sink in. Somebody is, you're standing in line to a nightclub. Well, that nightclub might have its own utility token, its own purchase. It could have a VIP coin where if you have the VIP token, that's how you decide who gets in. And it doesn't at that point matter as much how much that token's worth. It matters that it's something you want to hold on to because you can use it for something. An arcade, right? Your local arcade could have its own token, and it's good for this many game plays. And regardless of what it goes for on the open market, it's always good for this many plays, that kind of thing. Those are the kinds of tokens and coins that I think should have already taken off by now. And then, what you were talking about, Lisa, with younger people not accepting cash, much less checks. A lot of it is, okay, you want to make sure that your money's good. My sister runs a coffee shop, and they come across bogus bills and stuff all the time they have to look out for. And sometimes they're really good and sometimes they're really stupid. I've run like music festivals where, everybody's paying cash for beer tickets, for drink tickets. And some of the bills they turn in, because it's madhouse. There's like people partying.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Give me this many tickets. They throw $100 bill at you. Yeah, it looks okay. I'm busy. At the end of the day, you're looking at it and it's like, that is so obviously fake. That happens all the time. But also, and probably more importantly, is that it's inconvenient at this point. Because it's like, okay, you get cash, and then what? You got to go to the bank? Ugh, barf. I got to go to the bank? That's terrible. That's so stupid. Who goes to banks? I hate banks. I only go to banks to sign up for an account, and then I use Venmo to link to it. I don't want to have to go to the bank physically. Come on. So, the inconvenience of cash. That's why
Gary said we already live in a digital. That our money is
true
already
to an extent.
digital.
Yeah.
No, that said, we
live in a
can't
digital economy.
we can't dispense with the physical entirely either, right? We have to have it, because there are some people who will want to be off the network and who will not be able to afford to be on the network, who will need to be able to pay for things like food and whatever it is you need for a starter kit for shaking a cup on a street corner. Like, not to be cruel, right? Like, I'm saying these people do need hard currency still, right?
Lisa, you're familiar
with that. We can't get rid of it. We can't get rid of it totally until we can make sure that everybody can access some kind of economy.
Yeah, this idea that the parallel economies already exist. You have the homeless population. You have people that are not plugged in to financial rails, the mainstream financial rails that have to operate somehow.
And a lot of times they choose that. And you have to be careful with that too, because whether we provide it, it will exist. We had a situation, very well intended, very large group of churches went down and got very involved with a huge poverty community in Oklahoma City and started handing out gift cards for food and different things, and found out that they created an economy for sex workers with gift cards. So, bartering, trading, money is a store of value, and it can be different things that we, the people, decide what it is. And that's where we do have the power to change and decide what we are going to use as money. We don't have to use what they say, what they tell us, what the Fed shoves down our throat. We can choose something else, but we have to say enough and choose something else.
Yeah, I saw that happen. Something similar when I was in Norfolk, Virginia. When I lived there was an issue with I don't know what. I guess food stamps. They were like paper bills basically, but they were printed, literal, actual food stamps that you would. There's a coupon that you turn in the store for food, and then the store would redeem them for cash, and which is great. But that same thing happened. People were getting arrested, and they started noticing a pattern that the folks that they were arresting for these sometimes bullshit, petty stuff, but also sometimes really disgusting crimes, they tended to always have like a roll of food stamps on them. And they realized that that's exactly what was happening, is the stamps themselves were being used as a currency without ever needing to convert them into cash. The stamps themselves held value, and you could exchange those. And so you see that happening a lot. And that's why I believe in things like cryptocurrency, even specifically like privacy coins and things like that, where it doesn't necessarily require everyone to know how to convert them into whatever their local currency is or whatever currency they can pay the bills in. What it requires is every community having a few people that everybody knows who do understand how to do that. Because at that point, it's like, oh, I know a guy who knows a guy who will accept these and buy them from me. So you might be 5 degrees of separation from you, but that's enough to where an entire local economy can operate, where they never intend to convert them into a different form of currency. They just trade with them directly for goods and services, and somewhere down the line, somebody knows how to convert them to cash or whatever they need in the system they're working.
If it needs to go outside of that community,
if it needs to go out of that, yeah, right, that kind of thing. So yeah, education is great, but every single granular person doesn't need to know everything about it. It just needs to be easy enough to use, as easy as cash. And we all have our handy dandy surveillance device these days.
Yes.
So we can use that to beam it to each other, whether it's a smartwatch, and you can just, I was reading a book recently, and they were talking about cryptocurrency without talking about cryptocurrency. And in there, it was set in the future, and people just in conversation, instead of Venmoing each other to split the bill, they just beamed some cash to each other. And it was like, the characters were like, yeah, let me just beam you some cash. And it was this electronic thing, and that was it. And so that's basically where I would like it to go. Real quick, we got like 7 minutes left before we got a hard stop. Do we want to hit on anything else?
Let's see. There's something else funny, I feel like, that we didn't mention yet.
Oh, there's plenty of funny stuff. What's funny? Tyler Childers made a gay love song, and the country music scene is going nuts over it. That's funny. And it's a popcorn worthy current event. I love Tyler Childers. Really good at making sad music. Really hits home as a country boy myself, growing up in the woods. And I don't know. I love that you stir in the pot and getting people talking about it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I think it's funny that people get mad. I think people getting mad about things that I don't care about is funny. That's what that's about.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I thought it was funny them calling Tom Emmer an OG in the hearing yesterday. Like, just hearing them use that kind of language in what's supposed to be a very formal setting.
Right?
He's an OG. It's like, because they're talking about crypto and because it has this cypherpunk history and start, they're trying to be cool.
Yeah. That's like trying to like put on the rock and roll t-shirt that says rock band and then holding a skateboard and being like, yeah, one of you kids, right?
Yeah.
It has a certain like hello, fellow youngsters kind of vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. He's an OG.
Like, no, you don't have to.
Don't
you don't have
that.
to do that.
Yeah, it's like please don't sprinkle more cringe on Congress.
Right. Yeah, that was funny.
It has enough. But
now we passed the snip test today.
You gotta give him some love for
what's up, Sean?
What he's done for us. So.
Hey, Sean. Sean is doing better. I've been chatting with him and staying. Yes, we miss him. And,
I talked to him recently too. I'm glad to hear that he's doing better. So that's good.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be a while, but
touch on Ukraine, did we?
Life's a process. We did not touch on Ukraine, but I don't think we have time for that because we are at the end of this 2-hour marathon of a show that we do every week.
The other thing that we didn't touch on that I think totally bears mentioning is the fact that Kennedy was nearly censored in a censorship hearing, which I thought was kind of funny.
What was that? What happened?
Fairly ironic, because they made that executive session motion to try to keep him from having a platform in the censorship about deplatforming, or the hearing about deplatforming.
Who was that? I missed what you said.
Robert F. Kennedy.
RFK.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They literally he was a testifying witness, and right before they made a motion and then they renewed it after the first thing he said.
So in the hearing about censorship, they employed censorship.
Yeah. Oh yes. Actually, it's a really great hearing just to watch his intro, because he talks about all of the right things about a need to to stop trying to vilify each other and stop playing gotcha games and stop abusing process to silence and all this stuff, and then hit the right tenor and describe all the things that were wrong with what was being done and how we need to find a place to come back to where we can all speak like adults and be friends after we're done disagreeing, right? Like, and then they proceed to do exactly the opposite of what he talked about. It was a freaking incredible moment.
Doesn't it sort of seem like there's like a bunch of stuff going on, and then someone says, "Oh, look, a pink elephant," with the whole like alien UFO thing?
Yes,
it's like exactly that, right?
That yesterday, the UK announced or finally admitted they're in like official recession. And, like I said earlier, Japan is selling their U.S. Treasury. Like there's real stuff going on, and there's the distraction. There's the show,
Well, I mean, and honestly, anybody who listens to anything the government says about UFOs or aliens or any of it, right, and doesn't immediately assume that they're still lying, because what rationale did they have? What new thing came about? Like, oh, we should start telling the truth now. Like,
yeah, that pisses me off when people pretend like, oh yeah, all that stuff they did all of this fucked up shit in the past, but they would never do any thing like that ever again. They don't do that today.
Like it's real.
No agenda.
Them talking about like it's real makes it less credible to me, and I think that's
and also with the UFO thing. Just the last thing I'll say about that, they're either lying to us now or they were lying to us then.
Yeah.
There's been this whole like everyone was made out to be ridiculous and shamed for suggesting that there might be some weird shit out there, and now they're like, oh yeah, right. There's some weird shit out there, and let's destigmatize it now.
Yep,
like you're the one who stigmatized it in the first place, kind of deal.
Makes way more sense too if it's not aliens, also, right? Like aliens would actually make very little sense given what we know about the Hubble volume and the limits of interstellar travel in the face of cosmological expansion, right? Like, not likely to be aliens when you look at the other possibilities. Like, maybe humans in the future invent time travel. Maybe it's just us.
Here's some homework for everybody. Look up the grabby aliens theory, which basically says that they're either really slow or they're really fast. Meaning the reason we wouldn't see them yet is because they're really if they're really slow, we would have seen them already. But if they're really fast, then we won't see them until they're here. That's the scary part.
I think it's the Bigfoot Mothmanonians, and they are hiding in the woods and underground. I'm teasing.
All right. Well, that's going to be it. Any last words? We got less than a minute, and we got to cut it on our hard stop.
Fuck. Free Julian Assange. He's still in prison, for fuck's sake, people. They had a whole censorship hearing. They didn't talk about what they're doing to the press with his prosecution.
Love one another. See you next time.
Do that. Love one another. I love. Let's go out. I love love. I like love a lot. Bye, everybody. See you next week. All right.
Bye.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?